Professor Becker is considered one of the greatest world specialists in human interaction and the dimension of human behavior in the ups and downs of the economy. Human capital and his talent in view of the economic challenge of the 21st century.
Do you know that most of our audience in Spain are small and medium-sized companies, businessmen from those companies? What do you think is the model of competitiveness for this type of companies serving the global market? What do you think is the role of talent in this context?
Well, small and medium-sized companies, can, and many of them have been very successful. I'm not an expert on the Spanish situation, so I'll speak more generally. And some of them being successful by recognizing that there is this global market that I was referring to previously, and that if they can establish a niche, and a small company can do very well in a small niche market where it's producing a particular quality of a product, and it's hard to, because it requires a lot of skill and talent. It's not easy for China or India to use unskilled labor to produce it. So I think it's no longer possible for countries in rich countries, small companies in rich countries like Spain, which is now a rich country, or Italy or the United States, to be able to compete by offering low quality products based on low skilled labor. That's China and India. They're going to, and other countries like that they control that market. You got to recognize that. If you want to compete in that market, you should have your head examined, because you can't do it because of your labor costs are too expensive and so on. But you can compete in the market that's based on quality. And they do, and many small companies are competing in that market. And that's where talent comes in. Quality requires talented entrepreneurs who are nimble enough to make the adjustments as the world demand for different types of products change. So you have to be very nimble, easy to respond. That takes talent on the entrepreneurship, and then it takes talent among the employees to be able to produce this high-quality product with low scope for errors, good quality, low margin of error, and to be able to do that. And so far, the developing countries have not been able to do that on a large scale, and that's, I think, the market for small and medium-sized companies.
Coming now to Spain, do you obviously know that Spain has undergone a very dramatic process of change in economic growth during the past 3 decades. One of the reasons for this growth has been the regulation and liberalization of the Spanish economy. But obviously we are a medium-sized country. What do you see will be the challenges facing the future of Spain to continue along this way of growth?
Well, I think liberalization is the number one essential ingredient, because, as I mentioned earlier, the prospects for a medium-sized country like Spain wants to continue growing, clearly wants to continue growing to reduce the poverty and so on in the country. You have to think of having a significant role in the global economy, and I include that as part of the EU, the European Union economy, as well as outside the European Union. So a liberalized economy is essential, being able to compete under that environment where the competition is very tough. You never know what tomorrow is going to bring in terms of a new competitor from outside, and so it's only if you have the flexibility that a liberal economy affords you, I think, that you can make those type of adjustments. So I think that's number one. The challenges, I think, will be several. I think as Spain continues to move up and develop, the importance of higher education rises. And Spain, I think, has lagged somewhat in the fraction of its population getting a higher education. Now that's a combination of government and private initiatives are necessary to achieve that. But I think that's very important to put much more resources into higher education. 30 years ago, when Spain was relatively lower income, well, then higher education wasn't so important. But now it's very important. The evidence I cited earlier, the importance of growing higher education, that's one area where I think Spain, along with a liberal economy, has to make the adjustment. The second another aspect, a country has to get accustomed to the fact that when you're tied in with the global economy, you're benefiting from that, you know, there are going to be some costs. Certain groups of workers are going to face competition. They may lose their jobs as a result of the globalization. Now, having a flexible economy means that these workers should find it relatively easy to find another comparable job. That's what flexibility does to you. Competition says, yes, we're not going to guarantee you your job. And Spain, I think, does too much guaranteeing still, despite all the reforms that it's had. But we're not going to guarantee you the job so much, but we're going to let competition provide this job. So yes, this sector may be being hit, but we're expanding in this sector, and they're hiring because they know of the flexibility around that. That's a direction I would emphasize, and I think further liberalization in labor markets is something I've called for a long time, for Spain and Italy and some of the other countries. Spain has made considerable progress, much more than Italy in that regard, but I think more can be done.
And also Spain has been a maverick sort of innovator in launching initiatives like the gay marriage, of a new ministry for equality. What do you think this initiative infecting the structure of the economy and the behavior of individuals?
I've always been on record as supporting gay marriage if people want to engage in those kind of marriages. I think that's a choice for individuals. In the U.S., a lot of people get hung up on whether one can use the word marriage, but I mean, I don't find that a problem, but certainly the people should be able to write contracts and effectively marriage contracts if they're gay, or whatever it may be. I think it is good for an economy. I mean, I don't think we should exclude behavior that some people may not like because it's unpopular. So I think it's valuable to move in that direction. I think that's why many countries have moved in that direction. Its direct effect on the economy is not large. It's small. But its indirect effect on having a small but vocal fraction of the population believe that they now are getting more equal rights, I think, is significant. So I know it's hard for many countries to make the changes out of traditional marriage. I've written a book on the family. I think the family is very important. Absolutely, I believe that. I think it's very important. But nevertheless, I think people should have the right, if they want to have a different sort of arrangement, such as gay marriage and a lot of other deviations from the traditional family, I think they should have that right.